or central. And Philip alluded to in the EU case, especially on the business side, why there's demand for new types of central bank digital currency that is not just we want something not issued by the central bank. And so I think you have to resolve that issue in some way. So I'm curious to hear what Philip thinks.
Yeah, interesting perspective, and I also agree. I would like to add two more points here. I think there is some kind of international contest going on between regions, between countries, and I think there is some kind of contest or competition going on between potential other forms of monies, potentially also including Bitcoin, right? We see this happening in El Salvador, right? So there is some kind of competitive pressure. And I think central banks have had the monopoly for issuing money and controlling monetary policy for quite some decades. And this is now being contested, I would say so, by Facebook's project Libra, by Chinese central bank, which is really pushing these topics now since here. They're basically launching next year, apparently. Then we have potential competition coming from decentral currencies. That's the case of El Salvador with Bitcoin, and therefore I think central banks now find suddenly in a space where they feel maybe they don't know it yet, maybe we all don't know it yet, but there is a feeling out there that in the future payment might be different, because at the end of the day, we as citizens would like to somehow keep our purchasing power. I can store gold, I can store euro, I can store dollars, Swiss francs, or Bitcoin. At the end of the day, I don't really mind, but I would like to be able to purchase my daily food and my rent, and I would like to keep my purchasing power for the future. And in case central banks cannot deliver this in the future, then I think there is the, let's call it threat, but it could also be a chance that citizens are turning away from this. And I think we should keep this kind of competition or contest in mind, which is in my mind now starting, and this contest could go on for the next years or maybe even decades. And another point I would like to make is the following with CBDCs, and now I'm referencing the Chinese version. They are now trying to build a solution where you can transfer the money across cities, persons, even across countries within a couple of milliseconds, right? So given the speed of the transaction is some kind of competitive relevant metric, then suddenly, for example, take an international corporation such as Siemens. Maybe Siemens chooses to onboard to the Siemens as a German company chooses to onboard to the Chinese system, because then they can transact money around the world within a couple of milliseconds, whereas they cannot do it in Europe, for example. So the competitive pressure of the performance of payment infrastructures can also drive central banks to move towards CBDCs. Another facet here would be programmability. In case one central bank or one currency is providing programmability for financial constructs in capital markets or for devices in the economy of things, in case companies are demanding this programmability, then they would like to have it. And in case, for example, the ECB is not providing this, then they turn towards programmable stablecoins or towards the programmable US dollar or to whatever currency out there, because they might want to have the programmability, because suddenly the programmability becomes one performance criteria where a currency and a central bank has to perform and deliver. And therefore, I think this could be a new area of competition which is going on, and we see this with Facebook's project Libra or DM. Actually, nothing happened here, right? They have a technical infrastructure in place. They have done a hell lot of PR and work, white papers. But at the end of the day, up until now, in the last 2.5 years, not much happened in terms of real action and real solutions, right? But still, central banks are really kind of upset. They are now really investigating this topic, and that, in my mind, has been driven by Facebook's project 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think how those competitive pressures might be getting more groups to be thinking of this, and then directly them having a problem to solve that this is the best solution for.
I think I have an answer to that. I want to build on the a comment about where programmability fits into CBDCs. I mean, I think that the structure of central banks is quite interesting. I mean, when I was getting into how cryptocurrencies work and then learned about finance just by some low quality YouTube videos, it was very simplistic, like central banks are just central. But there's really a lot more to it. I mean, they actually are kind of closer to DAOs, the way they're organized. Like there is a central bank organization, but member banks and commercial banks as part of them have a lot of sway. So it's a lot more nuanced and complicated than that. And what I think this fits into is, I think that there is room for a really nice design of what I think would be called a hybrid CBDC, where this is kind of just expanding on this notion of CBDC as a platform. Like I can imagine that the central bank would essentially act as a platform and set some bare operating rules, maybe some system invariants, like no programming error for an application will be able to inflate in an unbounded way the base currency that the central bank is supposed to be managing. But in much the same way, like in the Ethereum blockchain, the rules of not printing more Ethereum are no EVM smart contract you could write can inflate the amount of Ethereum currency it's built. Like that is an invariant built and maintained at the platform level. So I could imagine that the central bank would define some base rules like that, possibly for safety, possibly for regulation, possibly for base monetary policy. But then what a programming smart contract interface could do is leave it up to the member banks to be really flexible in terms of what kinds of extra functionality they define or monetary policy for their own tokens that are backed in some way by the central bank's base layer money. There's really quite a lot of flexibility that's available there. So I kind of imagine that may shape out into the role that this plays, where the member banks are responsible for the innovating, and that takes place in a programming layer of the infrastructure. The central bank is responsible for setting safety rules or regulatability rules or even just fair play rules, and that those would be enforced at the protocol level. So I mean, that seems to me to be the most, I don't want to say I could guess that that's the most likely, but somehow that structure just appeals to me and kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and I know we're getting close to time, so I'm going to let Ariel respond and then just ask a final question before we wrap up.
So I also want to follow up on Richard's question, which is, and if we look at experience in monetary policy, so where a digital currency has been extremely successful, say in an emerging market like Kenya with M-Pesa, it was a digital currency filling a role where there was a lack of institutions and infrastructure for doing payment services, especially not within a village, but across villages or across the country. There we saw a lot of success, and I think it was natural it came out of a private company, right? The cell phone providers, because they had established the technology to allow for these transfers. So it didn't quite make sense for the government to take on this new role of creating a whole new infrastructure to allow people to do better payment services. I think it's a very different question when we look at financial inclusion, say, in an advanced economy like the US, right? We have to really have a deeper understanding of why we have, a large group of unbanked people in the US, right? If they're unbanked because they don't want any records of themselves, then we have to ask, and this goes back to Andrew's earlier point, right? What are the right design choices of a CBDC? And is that consistent with the US government's willingness to create totally private currency? You hear a lot of this, Treasury Secretary Yellen said this early on in her tenure recently, that I don't like cryptocurrency because it seems only used for nefarious purposes, and you paraphrasing. And you sort of ask, well, how do you feel about cash then? Because that seems to be the predominant use of physical currency these days also. So I wonder about this tension of what is the US willing to do in terms of a regulatory anti-money laundering, know your customer protocol for a central bank digital currency, and will that provide the privacy and security that the unbanked may want, if that's the reason they're unbanked? So without a real, again, in emerging economies, I understand why folks are unbanked, right? The infrastructure and institutions are not there. In advanced economies, I think it's much less clear. And so when you ask why is the Eurozone or the US creating CBDC for financial inclusion, I think it's a much harder case to make. So I'll stop there to leave us time for a last question.
And I just wanted to follow up with, just building on a number of statements that all of you have made, given kind of some of the current pressures that are in existence for a variety of reasons, but there's a bit of this race to roll out a CBDC. Some might be, from a certain perspective, potentially vying for, establishing the digital future reserve currency. We don't need to speculate on the specific impetus, but given all that has been mentioned in this panel so far, from a citizen's perspective, what should we be most worried about as central banks rush to figure out these new technologies and potentially deploy them? Do you have any specific concerns that are top of mind in your minds as these get rolled out?
Well, I think privacy is the number one. Privacy. We should, as citizens, try to force the institutions to keep privacy. That might not necessarily be for all kinds of transactions, but at least, like transactions below a specific threshold should be private, the same way as we have paper-based money, which is also private. And the second point is monetary policy can become dangerous because, for example, in Europe, we have negative interest rates, right? So you are putting money on the bank account and 1 year later you have less money on the bank account because we have negative interest rates. So negative interest rate can be pushed through much easier with digital infrastructure. And there is also a threat of money which can expire at some point of time. So you have to spend it. Otherwise, it's for whatever reason gone like a voucher. And there are a couple of design choices where I think we have citizens, but also the political parties and those people who are, let's call it, building or driving or governing the systems. You should really be warned that we should not have technology which would allow this.
Andrew?
Yeah, I agree with the way that you put that. I just think that there would be, my concern is that there may be a tendency to think that because the design includes blockchain in some way, that solves the problem of providing privacy for the individuals and accountability for the people running the system, but that's not a built-in guarantee at all. It's entirely possible to design a system that includes blockchain technology, but gets it backward, providing opacity and the ability to delete data or freeze accounts roughly unaccountably for the administrators, and that provides no privacy for the individual users. So you can't just rely on technical destiny to assume that that's going to carry out the right way. I think it's really important to ensure that the designs that we have from the beginning reflect what we should be asking for in terms of rights to the citizens.
Thank you. And Ariel, any final words before we wrap up?
Well, not to sound like the nerdy macroeconomist here, but just to point out everything Philip said, academic economists might say are exactly a good thing. In theory, there's nothing wrong with negative nominal interest rates. A zero lower bound is a constraint on monetary policy. Alleviating that constraint is good. The experience in the Eurozone has not been great. So I appreciate Philip's perspective. A hot money where you get vouchers that expire can be a very valuable tool, precisely say in the midst of a pandemic. Overall, will that be used correctly by policymakers? We should be worried. So just to be, a little concerned that it might enable the policy space in good ways. Could it be used in the wrong way? Absolutely. And I agree broadly with the point that we need to deeply understand what is the desirable level of privacy in developing these digital currencies, and our consumers, our retail, our citizens getting the appropriate mix of privacy and security from governments if they're issuing these. So.
Great. Well, we really just want to thank you all for taking the time to share your thoughts, opinions, and work today. For those who want to continue the conversation beyond this single recording, please feel free to check out the Smart Contract Research website, smartcontractresearch.org, where we're going to have a dedicated post to this panel. That post will include more work, links to the work of all of our panelists, how to get in touch, and also some broad information on this topic as a whole. There's so much we unfortunately did not have a chance to dig deeper on or bring up. So I definitely hope this is the first of many dialogues we'll be having around this topic. And I just want to thank you all again, and hope all the listeners have a chance to enjoy the rest of the summit.
It's been a blast. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for your time, everybody. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for that fantastic discussion on CBDCs. You guys will hear more from the Smart Contract Research Forum in coming panels and presentations and on the other stage as well. So keep your eye out for that. And that address again was smartcontractresearch.org. We're going to be going for the next sort of session here. I'm really excited for the next lineup of talks. It's extremely exciting to see who's next. We've got Sergey Nazarov coming up, Ben Chan, Alex Mashinsky, and many more throughout the day, and of course the next 2 days. So make sure to stick around for that. We're going to take a brief break and listen to our good tunes in intermission, and when we come back, we'll be here with Sergey Nazarov.
Really step into a bigger DeFi ecosystem and what role the different designs can play within the DeFi ecosystem. So everyone on this panel has created successful stablecoins that are really helping to reshape the way that we think about money and what is possible in DeFi. And yet each of you has really approached the design of your stablecoin in different ways with very different consequences and trade-offs. So I want to ask each of you to just comment on the overall vision behind the technology, the operational design decisions that went into the building your project, including how Chainlink plays a role, and some of the trade-offs that you made for your project. Let's dive right in. We can start with Raf and go around.
All right. Thank you for having us on, David. I'm looking forward to a great panel. So I'm Raphael, CEO of Trust Token, and we're the makers of TrueUSD, which is a $1.2 billion US dollar stablecoin. And TrueUSD, I think, has one of the simplest designs of any of the stablecoins on this that are represented on this panel. It's just backed one for one with US dollars. And we chose that because of simplicity. We wanted to make a stablecoin that was really straightforward, really trustworthy, where regardless of how TrueUSD is trading in the market, it's always backed by $1, and so it's always worth $1. And you can just go to our website, you can redeem it anytime, you can purchase more using US dollars. And so I think it gives traders and DeFi projects and a lot of folks that are looking for a stablecoin that's very stable, very trustworthy, it gives them what they're looking for. In terms of how we use Chainlink, we actually, in order to be as transparent as possible about those reserves that are backing TrueUSD, we actually have an accounting firm that does a real-time 24/7 attestation of those funds, showing that the 1.2 billion TrueUSD in circulation are actually backed by 1.2 billion US dollars. And then we've taken that to the next level recently with Chainlink and putting that those reserve values on chain in a Chainlink oracle, so that DeFi projects and other smart contracts that are using TrueUSD can actually monitor that and even have a tripwire where if that actual collateralization underlying TrueUSD ever dropped beneath 100%, they could pause deposits, they could change how the risk parameters of the protocol, etc. They can really take that into account. So that's TrueUSD. Thanks for having us on the panel. I'll hand it over to Joey.
Yeah, totally. I think it's really novel, the attestations for Chainlink oracles, and I'm excited to dive a little bit more into how that powers your stablecoin. Because like you said, it's pretty different from the rest of us, and we all have slightly different takes on the stablecoin space. So I'm Joey from Fei Labs. I founder and protocol architect for Fei Protocol. The Fei stablecoin, the original vision is to be decentralized, fully on chain, to the extent possible, scalable, backed by this idea of protocol controlled value, which is sort of assets and reserves that are stored in smart contracts, so not in a bank account. And the protocol has full custody, so it can deploy those into lending markets, it can deploy them as secondary market liquidity, and it helps basically provide utility and liquidity for the Fei stablecoin. Originally, we had this additional concept of direct incentives, which means that traders are penalized for trading away from the peg and incentivized with an additional mint reward, kind of like a negative fee and a positive rebate for trading towards the peg. We no longer use that feature. I'm happy to dive a little bit more into why, but the primary peg mechanism is this protocol controlled reserve, and the protocol is actively defending the $1 peg on secondary markets. And we originally launched with a time-weighted average price oracle. And we, through data analysis on chain, we realized that that oracle was just not efficient enough, and it didn't update frequently enough to have an accurate price for actually buying the stablecoin, which is how more enters circulation. People can buy it for $1. So we switched over to Chainlink, and it was seamless, extremely easy to plug into our system. And that's providing additional security against rapid price movements.
Perfect. Thanks, Joey. Maybe Manny or Sam, do you want to jump in here?
Sure, I'll go next. I think Ampleforth is a little bit the odd man out since we're not a stablecoin, but we have a mechanism that's been used, I think, in other stablecoin projects. So I'm the co-author of the original white paper and an advisor. And so I can sort of walk through a little bit how it works and how some of these pieces could be used in other stablecoins in the future. So one of the key considerations for Ampleforth was just making the mechanism really simple and minimal and decentralized. And, for context, this is, going back to 2017, 2018. So a lot of the infrastructure that we now take for granted was just not, did not exist. And so the way that Ample works, right, it's kind of the first rebasing currency. What it does is it really transmits the volatility from price to the supply of the Ampleforth token. And so as you can imagine, Chainlink has been quite important in that transmission of the price information from liquid exchanges outside of crypto, right, into crypto. And so if, Ample is trading over, say, $1, right, every day, there's a time-weighted average price. And so the number of Amples in all user wallets kind of rebases a certain percentage, increasing the supply until sort of the price falls back to $1. And so the benefit of this, right, so it doesn't insulate you from the volatility of crypto. If you hold Amples, the numbers are going to shrink or expand really rapidly, right? The market cap has increased 300x. So that's, or 30x, sorry. So that's, that's definitely, that's not a stablecoin kind of behavior. But what you do get out of it because of this kind of tokenized unit of account function is you do get stable contracts. So if I borrow 1,000 Amples, 2 years ago, and I have to repay them now, the dollar value of that $200 or $1,000 debt is about $1,000. Sorry, 1,000 Ample debt is about $1,000. So you get stable contracts out of this tokenization of unit of account, but you don't get the stablecoin kind of utility, which is that you kind of hold these pockets of liquidity without exchange risk. So.
Man, that was a great explanation. I think that's really fascinating. That it sounds like yours is the one stablecoin on this panel that, even though it's always worth around $1, it still is something that you can invest in and can go up, 30x, 300x. You can actually make money on, which is it's kind of a mind-bending concept.
Yeah. I think so as well. I think stable contracts are valuable, and there's a way of creating kind of long-dated debt contracts, right? Which you can then ideally use to then collateralize a true stablecoin, right? In true sense of the word. So we can definitely discuss that, in a little bit. So I'll hand it over to Sam now, though.
All right, thanks, Manny. So I'm Sam. I'm the founder of Frax. Frax is actually known for two things these days. Frax stands for fractional algorithmic currency, which is where we got the name from. And there's a wide range of stablecoins even on this panel. So what we kind of invented is that Frax is fractionally backed in the sense that there's collateral on chain. The entire protocol is on chain, decentralized, but the entire backing of the stablecoin is not 100% or over 100% like the MakerDAO model. So one of the first things we came up with was that there's this idea of stablecoins with no backing, such as Ampleforth, such as the original Basis design. There are stablecoins with fiat backing, such as Trust Token and Tether and USDC. And then there's stablecoins that are over collateralized on chain with crypto. And with Frax, we were the first team that said, hey, for stablecoin, the most important thing is that it's stable, right? And at the price peg. And that doesn't necessarily require 100% collateral backing all stablecoins in circulation. The same way a central bank keeps the exchange rate of something at a price target without having literally the actual thing in full reserves, right? So like if a central bank pegged to US dollars and they issued their own currency, they don't have one-to-one backing of literal dollars in their central bank. They just try to keep the exchange rate and defend the peg, which is what all stablecoins do. So with Frax, we said that, hey, why is everyone coming up with, over collateralized, 0% collateralized? What's in the middle, right? What's between 0 and like 100 and 150%? What's that fractional, extremely efficient, extremely decentralized algorithmic model where the peg is sound? At Frax, we've never broken our peg. We've been up since December 2020. I think perhaps, one of the only algorithmic stablecoins that have the Lindy effect of always being within 1% of the peg bounds. And the second thing I actually am really excited to talk about today, and what Frax has recently gotten a lot of discussion about, is that we're working on the first crypto native CPI called the Frax Price Index. And what that is that it's the first attempt that I know of, at least, that is looking to define a crypto native unit of account so that algorithmic stablecoins, other projects can actually peg to this exchange rate rather than the exchange rate of the US dollar. And so one of the cool things that we're working on with Chainlink is that in order to build a crypto native CPI, you need the consumer price index, the actual TradFi CPI, brought on chain to apply either improvements, transformations, additions to that index with new index prices. And we're really excited to do that with Chainlink, and then also just build our own unique product. And it's a collaborative effort. It's not just with Frax. So I've actually had a lot of in-depth conversations with Joey and the Faye team and other guys about it. And it's something really interesting. So perhaps we can get into it. In fact, it's gotten so big that I think perhaps, as a testament to how grand of a vision it is, we might actually rename it to something even bigger rather than the Frax Price Index, something like the Stability Price Index or the Crypto Price Index or something like that. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Sam. And we can definitely dive into all of you mentioned some of the future things you're working on, so maybe we can dive into that next. But I want to just mention it's really mind-blowing hearing all of the mechanism designs behind these stable coins and how complex the design can be behind creating something that's a stable coin. And it's really amazing what's happening in the space around that. And all of you are really approaching it in super amazing ways. So it's really great to hear that. And maybe we can dive just into that a little bit more. Some of you mentioned what's coming next, what you're excited about. So you've made these specific decisions around how you're going to design the stablecoin. What are the applications? What are you excited to see happen in the space, and how do you want to see these applied for the future of DeFi?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to piggyback a little bit off of what Sam was mentioning about the Frax price index, stability price index. I think there's a lot of media attention right now around this idea that, you know, DeFi, like what we wanted was a decentralized computer, and what we got was dollars on a blockchain. And I think there's something really there's something really powerful about the idea that we can peg to arbitrary price oracles and arbitrary price feeds, and those could obviously be powered by Chainlink. And so thinking about like what else can be stable, or what does stability even mean? It's a really powerful idea. One thing that really attracts me about the Ampleforth project is that I believe your like sort of peg that you rebase to is the 2019 US dollar. Is that correct?
Yeah. So that is currently $1.06 of today's dollars already.
Wow. First of all, how do you get that price feed on chain? And second, how do you get that price feed on chain? That's the first question.
So I think there's a number of oracles that now feed into kind of the Ampleforth module, but I think Chainlink does provide, I think there's a CPI feed, if I'm not mistaken. So we sort of just get it off chain.
Get that CPI feed on the Frax price index stuff.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you guys, so when you say a crypto native price index, so I'm just thinking by the way, so my day job is as a financial historian. So sorry for some of the questions, but are you guys basically tracking like the number, like crypto native prices, like in certain markets? I mean, that's normally how price indexes came about, right? You would send someone to the market and see what's the price of gold today, what's the price of corn, whatever, and you build these series over time. You used to do it manually, but I'm wondering, how are you guys picking the prices within the crypto ecosystem to kind of generate this index?
Yeah, so let me just give some background on this, because I think everyone seems to be really, really interested in kind of exploring this idea. So a lot of what people are now discussing is that, like Joey was saying, is the dollar is kind of loosely pegged to the consumer price index, which is kind of the standard of living basket of consumer items that the Federal Reserve, thinks that the average American should be able to buy across time. And, simplifying it a lot, but give or take something like that, plus minus around 2% inflation per year. Our original thought with the Frax price index was, what if we actually define a crypto native standard of living? So obviously it's going to require real estate, like rent prices, consumer items, maybe even improvements.
Have a Lambo in there, right?
Yeah, everyone needs a Lambo in there too, the Lambo price index. But the idea behind it is there should be probably some crypto native elements in there as well. So perhaps the Ethereum base fee, if Ethereum is going to settle all value, in the digital economy in the 21st century or something like that, so that the cost of settling on Ethereum, if you have this money, should kind of go with your standard of living. Now, obviously, what makes it into this price index is really important. When we started working on it, it was just us a few months ago, and then Joey and a few other projects reached out, and we realized that if this is going to be a legitimate peg, and by legitimate peg I mean things that multiple projects are actually going to hopefully peg to, so that there could be stable Frax price index or stability price index stable coins, so that there could be curve pools or tight liquidity around these stable coins, we're going to have to make it bigger than us at Frax, right? We're going to have to make it something that's more general. So we're talking to a lot of people, and one of the first things is maybe we rename this to something very, very general, right? Like the decentralized price index or the stability price index or something like that. And right now we're kind of at the stage of who is going to build the initial Genesis stablecoins with Frax and their projects. So it's a really collaborative effort. It's really an interesting idea because I don't think anyone is doing this. I think we're like kind of the first group, even on this panel. You know, it's one of the first conversations that's being had. And in fact, when I originally talked about this on Twitter, Balaji, who's also speaker at SmartCon around some of these topics, reached out to me and said, "Hey, this is something I'm extremely interested in." Balaji actually invested in Frax, and a lot of people said that this is something that's going to make the world better, right? It's not just like something fun or something collectible or something, but actually improve people's lives with crypto. So I think it's really, really important that we talk about it. So I always really like talking with Joey about it. They're at the forefront of this too with us. So it's been a great time.
Very cool.
So I have two thoughts, if that's okay. Oh, sorry,
it.
go ahead, Raphael.
Go ahead, Manny. I'll go after you.
So there's two thoughts here, and they kind of oppose each other. One is, to me, it's really exciting because the way that I think about it, at some point, you're going to have a lot of crypto native economic activity, right? And I know we're all finance and history geeks, which is why we're doing DeFi. But ultimately, I think crypto might be a world, the whole metaverse kind of concept. I think that might be a lot larger than probably DeFi in some ways. And I think there, getting a price series on the price of virtual real estate, virtual goods, that would be incredibly unique and powerful. The other thought, though, on the other hand, is that the network effects kind of around dollars are incredibly powerful, right? So we've seen this in the real world where banking systems get dollarized, even though the share of trade with the US might be negligible, right? And so Gita Kopina's research, right, at the IMF has basically been around this kind of dominant currency paradigm, where the US is just like 15 to 20% of world trade, and yet, so much of trade is dollar denominated. And we've seen this historically too, where, a country might be dominant in trade, and then that country actually ceases to exist as it currently does, but then that currency unit lasts for hundreds of years later just due to the network effect. So in some ways, dollarization, I think, is going to be really, really, really hard to break out of, especially because the US is still around,
Yeah,
so those are my two thoughts.
One thing I always say is like the dollar is like the SI unit of economic value, right? In order for us to talk about value properly, you need a common language, right? The same way meters is for distance and joules is the SI unit for energy, so that we have a common unit to talk about those kinds of things. I always say, for now, the dollar is the de facto informal SI unit of economic value. People say it's not going to be for long, or people's BTC Maxi say it's going to be BTC or something, but it's the lingua franca of economics, I think.
Great, thanks, Sam. And I do want to let Raf jump in here, but real quick, I want to encourage people to drop questions in the chat. We have about 8 minutes left here, but we'd love to get to some live questions if any come up. So go for it, Raf.
Yeah, so Sam, I completely agree with the importance of the dollar. And there's something that Joey said that I don't feel like I can take lying down. He said, we wanted a decentralized computer and we just got dollars on the blockchain. And I think that what a lot of people actually want is dollars on the blockchain. And that while there is, dollar-like products, algorithmic stablecoins, crypto-backed stablecoins, et cetera, are very interesting conceptually and have a very real use case within crypto. I think that actual dollars on the blockchain are right now they're the overwhelming majority of the stablecoin market. They have been for years, and I think that they likely will be for years. And part of the reason is because not only do people want a stable unit of value, which many different kinds of stablecoins can provide, but they also want to be able to literally on-ramp their dollars and off-ramp their dollars onto the decentralized computer to do all kinds of things. So, and that's something that fiat-backed stablecoins like TrueUSD are uniquely well suited to provide, right? You can just redeem them for for US dollars. You don't have to trade them for US dollars. That's a key difference. And so I think that we do have a decentralized computer, and one of the main use cases of the decentralized computer is trading and lending and borrowing and moving around real world assets such as the US dollar. I don't think that makes the decentralized computer any less useful or decentralized. I think it's actually one of its strongest use cases.
Yeah, totally hear that. And like, you know, the statement very much was like partially tongue in cheek. Like, obviously everyone on this panel is working on a USD stablecoin in some form. And so, none of us are disputing the power of the US dollar here. And I think your approach is extremely powerful and uniquely suited to do this. You're literally putting US dollars on a blockchain. And of course, that's like instant product market fit and what the market really needs. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where else we take this decentralized computer and what we do with those dollars on blockchains. So what else are you guys building out over at Trust Token to kind of push that forward and build out that utility? You were mentioning earlier something about merging trad.
Yeah, so a couple of things. One is we have a DeFi protocol called TrueFi with lending pools. Right now, they're all stablecoin lending pools. And I'd love to look into getting some of the stablecoins that are represented here on the panel added to the protocol as well. But doing uncollateralized lending, which is, we think, a huge application for stablecoins on the blockchain. And then another initiative that we've got is actually launching other global currencies, not just US dollars, because there's no question, while the US dollar is primary today, both in traditional finance and in crypto, we think that there is a very global audience for crypto assets, and a lot of people want to be able to on-ramp and off-ramp other currencies. So we've actually been seeing a lot of growth recently in our other products: True Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, Hong Kong dollar, and British pound. So those are all things we're quite excited about.
Sounds great. Thanks everyone for commenting on that. We do have a couple of questions here. One is someone's asking about the divergence between CPI and FPI. I'm guessing that's the farm price index. Would that be a better peg to value? I don't know if one of Sam or Joey can comment on the specific type of index here.
I think, I don't know if it is the farm price index or Frax price index, which is the one we're making, but
okay. Got it. That makes a lot more sense.
So I think the question is the divergence of it. So what's really important here is, like, this is like the first attempt to try to create a legitimate peg or unit, not actually a stablecoin. Many people can create various stablecoins, from decentralized ones to centralized ones, or different mechanisms that peg to the FPI. And what's important here is the more stablecoins use this unit, whatever it might have, it's an ongoing discussion. We'd love for people to get involved with it, join our community, join some of the talks that Joey and I and the Faye and Frax team have and stuff like that. But the important thing is, the more stablecoins that peg to this, the more legitimate it becomes as a unit of account, right? We just talked about how important the US dollar is itself, because everyone denominates things in it, right? The unit is the network effect, right? And in order to build a new unit that has strong network effects, think of what that would entail. That would require multiple teams with multiple stable coins, different mechanisms, all pegging to this unit, that there would hopefully be curve pools, right? That have tight liquidity around this unit, rather than the peg of a dollar, or like the peg of BTC pegs. It would be like FPI peg coins, right? It would just be a big pool there. And tight liquidity, like on Uni V3 range orders, or things like that. And now we finally have the tech on chain, like Curve, Uni V3, all of these things, to create the network effect advantages around new pegs. That wasn't possible before, right? There wasn't deep liquidity at structural peg units, right? And now it's a good time to actually make a new unit. And so that's really exciting. And so what makes kind of Frax and Fei and the other stablecoins on this panel, like Ampleforth and even Trust Token, perhaps a fiat backed version of this, is that everyone can build a stablecoin that pegs to this, right? It's a fully new unit. It's almost like building on-chain monetary policy in a legitimized fashion, in a transparent fashion, and it's really exciting, right? It captures a lot of the imagination of what DeFi and global markets should be.
Perfect. We only have a minute and a half left here. So any closing thoughts from anyone? And I'm really looking forward to continuing this conversation with all of you as well.
Well, I think it's fascinating to see all the different kinds of stable coins that are represented here. If we had more time, I would love to hear from Joey more about what Fei Protocol is doing. I'm going to have to call him up after this and ask more about it.
Yeah, definitely would love to chat more. We're working on our V2 right now. So you're going to have some exciting improvements coming down the pipe. And also, like, I want to talk more to you guys. Like, I want to hear more about Manny. Like, the 2019 US dollar, like, is that the stable price index that we need? Like, it's and also you guys just got listed on Aave. At first I was like, how does that even work? But then it kind of clicked for me. I don't know. It's really exciting times right now. And yeah, thanks again for everyone for having us on here.
I propose that we close with Joey committing to do a house party like Rick did in San Francisco so we can all come hang out.
I will host you guys. I don't know if it's a party, but I'll host.
All right. Well, we are out of time here, but thank you all so much for joining. We'll keep the conversation going around this. As you can see, Chainlink can be applied to many different types of stable coins. So it's really great to see all the different applications and what all of you are building. So thank you so much for joining.
All right, thanks a ton.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. And the rest of the panel, Sam, Raphael, Manuel, and definitely a party at Joey's house. So we're going to have fun with that. But yeah, moving on, really excited for our next speaker. The talk is the Smart Contract Stack, Powering DAOs by Aaron Wright. It'll be coming up in just a few minutes, so stick around.
Society, whether it's through Enron or Wirecard or any number of other examples, that 1 year auditing process where everybody's buddies with the auditors and the auditors missed something or didn't see something or, were somehow having a conflict of interest. That 1 year audit window, I got to tell you, if you give people a choice between a 1 year audit and a 1 second audit, automatic audit with cryptographic truth, proving every single thing that was audited and that the place where it came from proved that the assets were there, that they were at a certain value, that they were in a certain state. I don't know a single person who's going to tell you, I'd like a 1 year audit. I'd like a year of risk. Give me a year. I'd like to take risk for a year. Nobody will want that. Everyone will want automated cryptographic truth-based audits. And you already see that from the organizations that understand how cryptographic truth can allow them to provide better guarantees. Now, once again, that's initially crypto firms, certain fintechs, right? Certain CeFi. But the fundamental kind of proof and cryptographic truth benefit compared to other things is just, hundreds of times better. And everybody can verify it. In our proof of reserve schemes, everybody can verify the assets that certain stablecoins have in bank accounts, in gold vaults, on a block by block basis. So block by block, what's backing a stablecoin because it was proven to you by a data source that, shows that. And what does that do? That makes it so that if anybody wants to under-collateralize that stablecoin, what do they know? They know that they will be discovered within 10 seconds. That's not a year. You can't take some money and hope to put it back in 10 seconds. It's 10 seconds. That's another example of a difference. And beyond that, it just expands, right? So highly validated data is the first category, where once you generate highly validated cryptographic proofs about what's going on, you can then prove what is true, what happened, what didn't happen. And then around that truth, around that cryptographic truth that was proven through, a definitive method of generating a consensus about what happened, you can then build all kinds of systems, all kinds of innovations, all kinds of things that weren't possible previously. And this is the amazing initial step that we've taken that has given birth to DeFi, given birth to proof of reserves, given birth to some decentralized insurance products, better versions of fraud-proof gaming. Here are just some examples. One of my favorite examples, quite simply, weather insurance. Based on what's happening with the weather these days, I think you can see why it's one of my favorite examples. People need weather insurance. There's a flood there. There's a forest fire here. There's rising sea levels there. There's lack of rain somewhere else. That's not going to stop, first of all. Second of all, how do people manage that risk in places that don't have insurance companies? What do? You know what they do? They pray. They pray to the rain god. That's very nice, and they should do that if they would like to. But, that's not really going to work if there's no rain. That's not going to give them solvency. That's not going to allow them to continue being an emerging markets farmer. You know what they should do? They should do whatever they want to do to help make rain happen. And then they should have cryptographically guaranteed insurance that doesn't depend on their local legal system. The only thing it depends on is them having a $50 Android phone in their hand and internet access. And then all of a sudden, through insurtechs like Harbol, you can suddenly have people in all kinds of parts of the world where their local legal system doesn't work. The insurance companies aren't going there. The ones that would go would be predatory. There's payday loan people who are predatory. There's banks that are highly predatory with just crazy usury rates. And they can just sidestep all that because you now have a system of contracts based on cryptographic truth. We can verify whether there was rainfall. They can sign up for the insurance with the cryptographic proof, and they can automatically be paid what they're owed, not because an insurance company says, I feel like it, but because it is enforced by math and physics. And now somebody with a $50 Android phone and an internet connection that hasn't heard of an insurance company up until now can have better insurance guarantees through cryptographic truth than people in developed markets that are still stuck with paper promises. That's unbelievable. And more importantly, that will completely change that person's life. That will allow them to continue being a farmer, or it'll allow them to continue, selling meat or building construction things or whatever they're doing. And this is the underpinning of society that isn't seen by people, but which underpins how society works that we're changing. This is partly dependent on our ability to generate these cryptographic systems, our community's ability to help build Chainlink, and the inclusion of data providers. And I'm really, really encouraged to see large and impressive weather providers like AccuWeather basically going on and running their own Chainlink nodes and providing their data to various blockchain networks eagerly in order to service all of these smart contracts. Because there is a huge world of data, and everybody does want it to be used to achieve these critical, massive changes in how society works. And the place where that is going to happen is the smart contract state on blockchains. And all we really have to do as an ecosystem and as a project and as a group of people is make that happen. We have to get the data and the things that all of the smart contract developers need in order to build the future and to build this cryptographically truth-powered world. We need to get it to them. We need to give it to them in a secure, reliable, decentralized way. And if we're able to do that, it'll change our industry. It'll change the way the world works. And, I personally think it'll make Chainlink a global standard, which is once again our goal. Other examples of this are very straightforward. NFTs. NFTs are really impressive. They're great. But even more impressive are dynamic NFTs that are updated by what happened, right? So if you own some kind of sports-related NFT, with the help of Chainlink networks and the data and sports data, you can keep it updated, and the value of that NFT can be tied to what's happened in the real world. That's called the dynamic NFT. So that's a great gaming example. Other examples are things like identity, where you're able to verify identity for something like a decentralized domain system like Unstoppable Domains through Twitter. And you're able to connect various points of identity to a domain system like Unstoppable Domains or Ines or others. And identity is something we're working on, is another source of data. But this is just to highlight that there's large varieties of other data that will continue to generate large varieties of other critical use cases, which were previously unavailable, and will once again reinvent what our industry is about. And that's what I think we should all be focused on, and that's what I think we should be doing. The next part of this chapter in enabling developers to build more and generate even more impressive things is off-chain compute. Now, when I say off-chain compute, I mean trust-minimized off-chain compute. I mean off-chain computation that isn't done in a centralized web server, but it's done in an Oracle network in a way that creates some degree of trust minimization so that you still have decentralization around the computation, but you can still use it to do things other than what you would do in a smart contract. This is an entirely separate category where so far we have generated randomness very successfully for many gaming applications. Now we are moving on to keepers, automation, and more advanced off-chain compute. And beyond that, there's expanded computation like FSS. So far, in less than a year from going live, the verifiable random generation systems that we've put out are now generating over 200,000 VRF requests per month for many of the top games in the blockchain industry. And what that shows me is that not only is data and the access to various data, identity data, weather data, price data, market data, location data, whatever data, not only is data a critical component of building more advanced smart contracts, but computation and certain specific types of computation that need to be trust minimized are also a key aspect of building smart contracts in an advanced, more useful way that's going to reinvent our industry and reinvent how the world uses what we're building in this entire industry. This is why we are today announcing that Chainlink Keepers is going live on mainnet. Chainlink Keepers has been in the works for a while, and it has been open beta for some time, just kind of soak testing it and making sure that it's secure and ready. And we're thrilled to say that today it's going live on mainnet and basically launching for use by all of the DeFi apps out there, and will be coming to all the blockchains where we integrate pretty rapidly. Now, Chainlink Keepers is fundamentally the ability to give a computation to something called a keeper network, to give a computation that isn't something you can do in a contract or you want to do in a contract for either capability reasons, the contract can't do it, cost reasons, the contract would be too costly to do it in a blockchain, or sometimes privacy reasons. The other reason that we found is realistically, just like you had a centralization problem with data, where people would run their own oracles and those oracles could fail, and that failure could lead to a DeFi protocol being, underwater or dislocated from markets or dislocated from reality. It's very much the same situation with keepers. You have developer teams and developer communities that are building a great DeFi application, a great gaming application, but they don't want to build infrastructure and they don't need to build infrastructure. And that's the problem we need to solve for them at Chainlink. And the Chainlink network needs to be built to solve by the larger community, by them together with us and so on. It's a matter of providing a decentralized system that you can offload the responsibility of off-chain computation to, while still having those off-chain computations have a measure of decentralization and trust minimized guarantees, right? So the way it really looks is, hey, I'm a smart contract development team. I know I'm going to do 1,000 contract calls about a certain topic, whether that's telling the contract what time it is. For example, smart contracts can't know what time it is. They need a server. They need a central server to tell it it's midday UTC time to settle, time to execute. Even that level of information isn't available to the contract, just time. And so these developer teams know, hey, I am going to have 1,000 plus interactions with a smart contract. Man, I hope I can keep my server running. Man, I hope I don't miss one of those, because if I miss one of those, it'll be really, it'll be a real problem. So instead of having to do 1,000 of those and not being able to tell their user base that they're giving them reliable guarantees, now they can quite simply say, here is one upkeep request into the Chainlink Keeper system, into a single Chainlink Keeper network. And then that Chainlink Keeper network will do thousands of ongoing DevOps, off-chain compute, and other transactions. Now, why does this matter once again, right? Just to explain this kind of slightly esoteric problem. Why does trust minimized off-chain compute matter? Well, once again, when you're building decentralized secure systems, you need to be secure and decentralized and hyper-reliable end to end. So you need to be hyper-reliable when the gas price is at 2,500. You need to be hyper-reliable if a server somewhere goes down. You need to make sure that your systems run in all market conditions, in all network conditions, because that's the nature of blockchain-based applications. You need to provide that cryptographic truth guarantee that under all circumstances, you will be able to generate the outcome the application says it will generate. So how does this look when everything's okay? Well, when everything's okay, the smart contract development team, is triggering things based on time, maybe doing limit order execution through their interface, maybe doing automated liquidations, maybe doing some smart contract DevOps requests. Someone on their team is maintaining a central server. That central server essentially decides how the application will and won't function because it controls certain key outcomes of what the smart contract application is able to do. And that is a very, very striking parallel to oracles, right? Data oracles. Same exact story. Guess what? That's a bad idea. Same reason. You don't want a centralized system controlling your contracts, whether it's for data or telling it what time it is or triggering it for various key events that you would ideally offload. And the place where that starts to get shown is when gas does go to 2,500 and transactions aren't being broadcast, or your centralized server fails, or an adversary finds out how to DDoS your one centralized server, and all of a sudden you're not broadcasting DevOps transactions to your smart contract. Those are all very exploitable, very risky things that Chainlink networks expressly eliminate, right? They expressly eliminate the congestion issues, the network issues, the market-based issues, the exploit issues, all of those. And that's been proven, which is why, once again, the Chainlink networks that provide data, hundreds of those now exist, going to thousands soon, and those networks provide that data under the same set of guarantees that Chainlink keepers will provide to the applications that now need a reliable method to compute key computations that the contract cannot do, but that have to be done in a decentralized, trust-minimized, hyper-reliable manner. And so that's the fundamental role of keepers. And this, once again, serves the purpose of, firstly, unburdening the smart contract development teams from having to do this so that they can focus on making a great DeFi, gaming, or insurance application. And secondly, providing an end-to-end decentralized guarantee for how the application functions. And this guarantee is what all of this is about. All of this is about a decentralized smart contract with end-to-end security, end-to-end decentralization. This is what end-to-end decentralization looks like, not this. Now, here are some examples to provide clarity. So in the case of Aave, we're working with them on reliably managing the liquidations in their protocol to make sure their protocol remains solvent. That means that the various liquidations that need to happen for their protocol to remain, above water and solvent and usable will now, in many parts of their kind of smart contracts, be done by Chainlink keepers that will provide guarantees about liquidating those things, about getting transactions in about that, about properly monitoring that. And that's a critical aspect of keeping the Aave protocol working properly. In the Synthetics case, it's about staking and fee distribution. And so there needs to be a mechanism to properly stake, give out staking rewards, fee distribution, and so on. And this is a very, very clear need in many different applications where a keeper network is now going to take on the role of making sure that that part of the application works properly as an off-chain trust minimized computing resource that's configurable by the Synthetics community and the Synthetics team and through whatever set of processes that community has. And then another final example is Pool Together for something as basic as starting its games and ending its games on the basis of time, right? So instead of the Pool Together team having to initiate these critical aspects of their game, they can now offload this responsibility to a hyper-reliable, decentralized computing system in the form of a Chainlink network that's committed to doing this, just like it's committed to providing data and under the same set of hyper-reliable systems guarantees, in reliable systems. So this is a big, big improvement for what smart contract developers can build today. They can offload a massive amount of DevOps, a massive amount of automation, a massive amount of computation that their team has to do internally. And they get their developer resources back. Their protocol becomes more decentralized, and their protocol can prove more cryptographic truth to their users. So it's just a benefit all around, accelerating what can be built. The more expansive vision of Keepers that I'm truly excited about, and I'm already starting to see certain protocols taking advantage of, is the ability to actually offload certain amounts of computation into a Keeper network. So the way that this looks, and in practice it can actually be done today at this very moment, is the broadcasting of a smart contract on chain into a network like Ethereum. That contract that was broadcast and deployed on chain then can be split into two equal parts. It can have a portion that is supposed to be executed on the blockchain network, and then it can have a subsequent portion, maybe even a very large portion, that would be extremely costly to run on the blockchain network in the Keeper network. So the Keeper network, basically at no cost, or just like web systems cost, just base minimal hardware and web traffic cost, which is like the lowest cost you're going to get for any computation, can now execute a portion of the code that was broadcast and deployed on chain. Now, the benefits of this are twofold. Firstly, you've deployed the code on chain, so everybody can verify what the Keeper network is going to compute for you. That Keeper network is only for that contract, and it is not going to compute anything else for anybody else. It's not going to do anything else. It's a distinct service that only computes that piece of code for that one contract on a committed SLA type of basis. And so everybody knows this Keeper network has committed to run that code, which has been deployed on chain. So now you know that this trust minimized Oracle network is committing to run that code. So you have certain assurances and certain cryptographic truth and certain transparency there. And then the Keeper network runs that code. So if you had a contract that you wanted to make more robust, you didn't want to pay a lot of Ethereum fees, or you wanted certain privacy about that code, guess what? You can broadcast it, and then you can have it run in the Chainlink Keeper system. And the Chainlink Keeper system can look at a multitude of on-chain and off-chain activity. And this is a very, very extensible capability that we already see some of the protocols we're working with that are using Chainlink Keepers doing. We're seeing them basically say, hey, I want a more robust, more advanced hybrid smart contract. Here's what I want happening on chain for cost or speed or whatever other reasons. Here is the code that I want to run off chain in a trust minimized way. And here's what I needed to do. I needed to tell me the time. I needed to go get some data. I needed to compute some things. I needed to compute something else. Once you see the results, I needed to monitor a contract somewhere and then do something based on that monitoring, because smart contracts, can't even really monitor each other unless they're kicked by a Keeper system. And so this is extending to a very large degree what smart contract developers can build with a trust minimized system that generates cryptographic truth on that topic. And so that's quite an amazing innovation, in my opinion. And I think it's going to generate a lot of very advanced use cases. Now, if this is something that you would find useful, if you're a developer, if you're building various blockchain-based applications, I think you should really check this out. This is a decentralized, easy-to-use form of off-chain computation that in a matter of minutes can allow you to offload some of your centralized responsibilities to a decentralized system that you can configure. You can add more nodes, you can add less nodes, you can expand what the nodes are computing for you, and you can prove all of that to your users so they know that this portion of your smart contract is not run by you, is not in a black box, but it is in this cryptographic truth, decentralized, completely end-to-end provable model, which is the model that I think everyone here is going towards. The next aspect of what we're working on, and what I think it's important to say, is the cross-chain compute aspect, right? So there's the off-chain data that the off-chain services and the off-chain payment systems that Oracle networks allow contracts to use. There's the off-chain compute that you can't do in centralized systems because they don't have a trust minimized aspect. You need to do them in some kind of trust minimized Oracle network-like system. But then there's also the cross-chain aspect. And the cross-chain aspect is actually the way to make some of the most advanced smart contracts, and really the smart contracts of the future, what we call cross-chain dApps or cross-chain smart contracts. It's the ability to string together multiple smart contracts from multiple chains using one smart contract, for data. Maybe there's a supply chain blockchain somewhere with data about, what's going on with a good. Maybe there's another blockchain somewhere that you want to do a payment in. Maybe there's another blockchain where the contract itself operates. And then maybe there's 5 other blockchains that you want to use to generate various DeFi interactions. This is why, we're quite proud and very excited to be announcing CCIP. So CCIP is something we've been working on for many years. In our initial white paper, we made it very clear that we want to support all leading smart contract networks for both off-chain and cross-chain interactions. And CCIP is similar to TCP/IP and other protocols that seek to provide connectivity and seek to make disparate different systems work under one messaging and under one communications standard. So CCIP is really about creating a global open source standard such as TCP/IP or others that will allow blockchains to interoperate with each other, will allow smart contracts from different blockchains to send each other commands, and obviously enable the movement of tokens between chains. And this is the final piece of the puzzle that we are now very, very focused on and have already been working on for years about how we want to enable a truly cross-chain set of smart contracts where all the different features of all the different blockchains and all of their different capabilities really need to be something that we give people access to. Because giving people and developers the ability to generate a smart contract on Ethereum, use DeFi protocols on other chains, send a payment on a Hyperledger payment system, maybe get collateral in Bitcoin, or do whatever complicated combination they want to do, is something that will unlock an entire world of innovation in our industry. It will unlock an entire new set of applications that were previously not available and previously not possible. And that's why we're doing this, right? We're doing this because we want to enable hybrid smart contracts to reinvent how the world works through this collaboration between different smart contracts, different chains, different capabilities. And we are positive, and we already see a huge demand for the ability to use multiple applications on multiple chains, multiple services on multiple chains, multiple smart contracts on multiple chains. So this is now the expanded definition of a smart contract, right? The initial definition of a smart contract might have been a tokenization contract, and that's it. And then it expanded to a tokenization contract with a voting contract. And then it expanded to a tokenization contract with a voting contract that uses a data feed. That's DeFi. And then it expanded to, tokenization, voting, off-chain data feed through an Oracle network like Chainlink, and maybe some off-chain computation. That's more advanced DeFi. And now, with the help of the work that we're doing on CCIP with the large and growing community of contributors and thought leaders working with us, I think what you'll see is that a smart contract will actually be defined by a tokenization contract, a voting contract, a multi-sig contract, a few off-chain data feeds, a few off-chain keeper systems that do computation, and a few other contracts in a few other places that provide distinct services and tokens and DeFi and other capabilities. And that will be the definition of a smart contract. That will be what a smart contract is. And that will be better for everybody, because the amount of capabilities that are going to appear from that is once again going to grow the industry. It's going to grow the industry based on the usefulness that that's going to provide to the entire blockchain ecosystem, to the entire world. And once again, that's our goal. Our goal is to grow the usefulness of the industry, just like DeFi has grown the usefulness of the industry with the help of off-chain data. And that's going to be a recurring pattern more off-chain services, more off-chain capabilities, more advanced smart contracts, more useful things for society, more users coming in and building things, using things that have blockchains. And eventually, it'll lead to a larger kind of societal and collective consciousness understanding of cryptographic truth. Because if you're getting cryptographic truth in one part of your life and you're not getting it in another part of your life, you're confused, right? You're thinking, hey, I have all these great cryptographic truth guarantees in my financial part of my life, but my insurance company isn't giving it to me. I don't think I like that. That's what all of this is going to result in as we gradually provide capabilities to developers and they gradually build more advanced smart contracts. That's how we get our industry from 1.5 trillion to hundreds of trillions, to powering how the world works. Now, one concrete example of this that I'd like to walk through is our work with Celsius. So we're very proud to be working with Celsius, who has over 16 billion in total value locked in their systems and close to 1 million users using them to generate yield on their cryptocurrency. Now, Celsius is an interesting organization, an interesting company, because with our help and with our collaboration, they're actually combining certain centralized systems with certain decentralized systems on a progressive and more rapid basis. And one of the things that CCIP and the ability to bridge value into other blockchains will allow them to do is it'll actually allow them to use various DeFi protocols such as Aave. And it'll allow them to use those protocols on different environments like Ethereum or Arbitrum or others. And so Celsius's plan, and I think this is going to be the plan of many different user-focused applications, and eventually the plan of many banks, and eventually the plan of many fintechs, is how do I interoperate with all of the useful smart contracts in all of the environments that can provide value to my user base? And more importantly, how can I do that with the most security and with the minimal technical investment? Both of which the CCIP standard and our approach to programmable bridges provides, which I'll go into more detail here. So generally speaking, what you're going to be seeing with the CCIP implementations is people like Celsius sending both commands and tokens to a CCIP-enabled programmable bridge. And what programmable bridge means is that they will send both the tokens and the instructions of what to do with the tokens to the bridge. The bridge will then move the tokens into relevant protocols according to the instructions that were given to it by somebody like Celsius. So the bridge is not just moving tokens and saying, good luck, I hope you know where to send them, or I hope you know what to do on whatever blockchain. The bridge is accelerating the speed at which Celsius and other cross-chain dApps, right? Because in this case, Celsius is very much becoming a very, very cross-chain enabled dApp and kind of collection of centralized and decentralized systems. It enables them to rapidly both send tokens and send the commands and instructions of what to do with the tokens, which means they don't necessarily need to deeply integrate with anything. They just need to send the tokens and the instructions. And now they can easily utilize not only multiple chains, but multiple smart contracts on those chains, such as Aave. And this is a huge benefit for everybody. So the first thing that it does is it allows Celsius and their users to gain access to all these different chains and all their different smart contracts. And the second thing that it does is it provides massive amounts of value to those protocols on those blockchains that want to interface with that user base, right? So Celsius has a user base of close to 1 million users, with 16 billion total value locked. That's growing pretty rapidly. Aave has an amazing lending protocol that can reliably and with the help of various cryptographic truth guarantees provide a lending dynamic that other systems that Celsius has access to can't. And Celsius's users may want to use Aave, and they may want to get their yield from there. And they should absolutely be able to do that. And more importantly, they should be able to do that on all the blockchains where Aave has lending markets, because one of the lending markets might be better, or one of the lending markets might be about something that isn't somewhere else. And so this is an example of a cross-chain application that is leveraging CCIP, leveraging programmable bridges to get to the next stage of building advanced smart contract applications. And this is the picture of what's to come, because they're leveraging external data. They're leveraging the cross-chain interoperability protocol, CCIP. They're leveraging programmable bridges. And what it's getting them is a more transparent system that proves to their users with various sources of cryptographic truth what's going on. It's allowing their users to use more applications and get more useful outcomes from various smart contracts. And it's fundamentally kind of changing their relationship with the entire blockchain industry. And so this is what we want to achieve with CCIP. Generally speaking, CCIP is a part of a larger stack with a number of different stakeholders and a number of different community members and a number of different kind of parties that need to fit into a larger holistic model. And that holistic model, is basically based on our viewing of it on these, 4 levels. And then it has 1/5 kind of critical aspect and system that we provide on the right here, the anti-fraud network. So the first level is the consensus and transport level. This is the computing infrastructure. This is the physical computing environment, which is, not surprisingly, the Chainlink networks, right? The Chainlink networks using OCR 2.0 will be able to generate even more efficient computations on a greater amount of topics. So OCR 1.0 was the protocol we released to increase the efficiency of Chainlink's ability to deliver data by over 90%. So almost a 10x increase in efficiency, which allowed us to scale the amount of Chainlink data-related networks to hundreds and soon to thousands, and which allowed us to really generate a faster response time, a cheaper response time, and so on. OCR 2.0 is going to have an even greater, it's not going to have a 10x improvement on efficiency, but it's going to have a very large improvement on efficiency. And more importantly, it's going to provide a more generalized computation capability for things such as signature aggregation about events on various blockchains. So OCR 2.0 is the consensus methodology at the core of the cross-chain bridge and at the core of the Chainlink networks that will be generating the consensus to approve various transfers between chains, whether those are messages or whether those are tokens. Now, the other thing that OCR 2.0 does is its efficiency gains allow us to add even greater amount of nodes. So if you've seen some of the things going on today at the conference, you would have seen large enterprises like Swisscom joining the Chainlink network and becoming node operators alongside other node operators like T-Systems from Deutsche Telekom and other enterprises in the future. So what you're really seeing is the highest quality validator set, the highest quality node network in the blockchain industry is only going to become more high quality. And OCR 2.0 is going to only allow a greater and greater conglomeration of larger and larger node networks. And so if you look at the other cross-chain bridges, you'll see 2 things. You'll see certain cryptographic mistakes about how the protocol is built that have involved losses of funds in the tens of millions because certain cryptographic primitives were improperly connected and the fundamental principles of the design were flawed. And then you'll see node networks in the single digits. And node networks often made up of a relatively small amount of node operators that are either anonymous, so you don't know who's controlling the cryptocurrency, or individuals, just a single person who doesn't have a security background, who doesn't have a DevOps background. Obviously, those people can join Chainlink networks and can make Chainlink networks. But if you're going to have a physical compute infrastructure, a decentralized infrastructure that eventually secures trillions of dollars in value, you want to have a system that gets you the best node operators, that directs fees towards the best node operators, and that progressively improves the quality of the network as the value secured by it grows, which is the distinct advantage that Chainlink networks have, and that OCR 2.0 only accelerates because it allows us to add even greater amounts of nodes, such as hundreds of nodes, into a Chainlink network that is bridging, let's say billions of dollars. The next level is CCIP, the cross-chain interoperability protocol. Fundamentally, CCIP is an open source global standard that we're collaborating on, that we're collaborating around with a number of important stakeholders, like Celsius, like various blockchains, like various DeFi protocols, like various bridge providers, various groups that need a reliable messaging protocol. So the CCIP is not necessarily about building a bridge. It can be used to build a bridge. It's about moving commands and information between chains, because it's those commands and information which will fundamentally make up any bridge. And so at the lowest level, you have the Chainlink Oracle networks coming to consensus using OCR 2.0, growing in larger and larger number with higher and higher quality node operators that have greater and greater amounts at stake to guarantee that the bridge is going to operate properly. And then you have a messaging system that has a very distinct purpose and a separation of concerns around messaging, right? Around the transaction of messaging and information and commands. And what this does is it enables cross-chain smart contracts, because smart contracts can now send commands to each other on different chains. It creates a global standard for blockchain interoperability. And very importantly, it enables various existing bridges, various, current interfaces to build a better bridge, to build a better interface into various blockchains, because that messaging layer absolutely has to be secure. It can't be manipulated, right? You need the physical compute infrastructure, doing things in a decentralized way, coming to consensus about the signatures that need to be aggregated, about what messages to be sent. And then you need the messaging system to be secure. And so that's why those are the two primary levels we're focused on. We're focused on making a highly reliable Oracle network that can aggregate signatures and can verify things on various chains reliably, and a messaging protocol that can send messages to different chains in a hyper reliable manner. Now, this is once again all about messages, right? So in subsequent presentations at the conference, you will see the details about the log system and the Chainlink message routing contract and a number of other things. So I don't really have time to go in this presentation, but what you'll really see is that it is about sending commands. It is about generating events that move between chains in a hyper reliable way, so that one smart contract can say, I want to release a token from that contract in another chain, or another contract can say, hey, mint a token on that chain, or lock a token on this chain. And it's really about sending these commands through messages. So it's not necessarily about token movement. It's about generating a messaging protocol. And that's really what CCIP's focus is. Once again, as a global open source standard that we're collaborating on with multiple bridges, multiple external kind of DeFi applications, multiple CeFi applications, multiple blockchains, and so on. And what this is meant to do is just make everybody's life easier and more secure, so that the DeFi applications can get more value into them. The blockchains can interoperate with each other and get more interactions between them and various user bases that they want access to. The CeFi applications can usually use blockchains. It's really just a massive benefit for everybody, because everybody just gets more usability from our entire ecosystem. The next level in the cross-chain stack is the cross-chain services level. Now, the cross-chain services level is really about creating bridges and creating cross-chain applications. Bridges are more along the lines of using CCIP to generate token movements for whatever topic the application or the user wants, right? So the programmable bridge is an initial reference implementation that we've made, and we're kind of making now, and we'll be releasing at some point, to show how you use CCIP to make a very advanced bridge. And advanced means not just the movement of tokens, but send my token to chain X and then monitor and put it into a DeFi application, monitor the yield of the DeFi application. And if the yield falls below a certain point, return it back to me. So you don't only send your tokens, you send your tokens and instructions about what to do with them. And the bridge abstracts away all the complexity of having to use that chain, of having to use those DeFi applications. You just get the benefit. You just get the benefit of that chain. You just get the benefit of all those DeFi applications. The DeFi applications benefit because they get far more usage this way. The chains benefit because the amount of transactions that they're executing for the DeFi applications or the services or the unique abilities they have, skyrockets. And the whole ecosystem benefits because everybody can just build more and more advanced things which once again allows us to turn around to society and say, hey, we've built this amazing advanced hybrid smart contract. Here's what it does, right? It allows you to use all the different DeFi applications in this programmatic way. It's getting you even more value as a user. You should use DeFi because this hybrid cross-chain application can generate all this important kind of usefulness to you as a user. Now, once again, the Chainlink programmable token bridge is built on CCIP. It's a reference implementation, and we absolutely encourage other people to build bridges. So we want others to build bridges on CCIP. The reason we're focused on CCIP and not building bridges is because we want to provide the fundamental messaging layer and the fundamental blockchain infrastructure, not the blockchain, but like the Oracle infrastructure that is going to reliably execute the CCIP messages. The ability to build bridges is something we want other people to take on. The programmable token bridge reference implementation, I think, will be very impressive and very useful. And it'll have amazing features that I don't see in any other bridges, and it will have security guarantees that other bridges simply don't provide based on the way they're architected with the use of cryptographic primitives, or because they're not using Chainlink networks and they don't have a sufficiently large collection of nodes. Fundamentally speaking, what you're really going to see is a very large amount of messages. I think you're going to see a large amount of messages for a number of different bridges in the blockchain ecosystem, which I think don't fundamentally want to build the messaging layer or the physical infrastructure layer of node operators. I think they want to build a bridge that manages the movement of tokens somehow for different interfaces or even from their own interface. And that's what I've seen. I've seen a lot of people build bridges and then be forced to make a validator set or be forced to come up with a messaging protocol because they needed a bridge. And what they really want is a bridge. So we will have a programmable token bridge that we're absolutely thrilled for people to use. But we absolutely encourage other people to use CCIP to build their own bridges and to build even more advanced bridges. And then also to build cross-chain dApps that have their own unique bridging functionality built right into the dApp. So its own bridging conditions and its own messaging conditions built right into the application itself, right into different smart contracts. Once again, sending those commands over CCIP. The next level of the cross-chain stack that we focused on and worked on is the anti-fraud network. So the anti-fraud network, I think, is an amazing and unique innovation where we are able to generate an Oracle network, partly based on our work on proof of reserves, that monitors various key aspects of risk. So if you look at any system out there in the traditional world that moves any kind of value or anything, they always have a risk management and a fraud management and an anti-fraud department, and often a very complicated set of AI-driven systems. This is what the anti-fraud network does in a transparent, cryptographically truth-based, decentralized manner. It monitors all of the activity at all levels of the messaging system, the bridging system, and anything else that CCIP or Chainlink networks would be used for in regards to cross-chain communication, movements of tokens, or anything else. So the anti-fraud network is a separate parallel Oracle network sitting next to each cross-chain bridge that comes in the form of a DON, and it's at the most detailed level possible, monitoring the activity on both chains. What's happening with the minting, burning, locking, unlocking? What's happening with messages? Are they being delivered? What's happening with the aggregated signatures from the Chainlink networks? Are there any deviations? Do those bridges need to be slowed down or sped up? What are the risks with those bridges? They're basically scanning for an endless collection of issues. Reorgs, not enough confirmations, any number of risks. And then what the anti-fraud network does, similarly to what risk management and anti-fraud systems do in the real world, is they mitigate risk. So they manage risk in order to make it so that the Chainlink messaging protocol, the Chainlink programmable bridge, CCIP messages are all being accepted or not accepted according to the levels of risk that are deemed acceptable by users. Because once again, if you look at any system that moves around value, it has a dynamic like this. It has a risk management system, an anti-fraud system, a department that does this, AI that does this. And it just makes complete logical sense that if you're going to move critical messages between chains, if you're going to move tokens between chains, you want an anti-fraud system. But in the spirit of our industry and in the spirit of cryptographic truth, you want that anti-fraud system to be on a decentralized Oracle network. You want it to be transparent, and you want to know what it's doing, and you want it also to become more and more advanced. So this anti-fraud network can grow to extreme levels of advancement, possibly even running certain AI algorithms or any number of traditional anti-fraud mechanisms. So I think the anti-fraud network is going to be something extremely useful for bridges. I think it's going to be extremely useful even for users of CCIP. And I think it's actually going to have a life of its own in other categories of fraud management, even outside of the cross-chain world. This is one of the key innovations that we've been working on. As I've said, we've been working on CCIP, cross-chain, and all of these things for years. You can see, that this was our goal in the very initial Chainlink white paper. And this is one of those innovations that I think is going to have a very large impact on the ability to go from millions in bridges to billions in bridges to eventually trillions in bridges and flowing through something like CCIP. The next level of the stack is applications and user interfaces. Fundamentally, applications and user interfaces are either about cross-chain dApps like Celsius that are now interfacing with multiple different chains and need the security guarantees of that, or it's about just interfaces, various apps, wallets, lending interfaces, whatever interfaces that want to efficiently use different contracts on different chains. It's really about enabling all of these places that have large user bases, whether that's a wallet, an exchange, a crypto lending system, to interface and get the benefit of various chains. And once again, this benefits everybody. This benefits the user base of those apps and wallets. It benefits the chains because they're getting a greater user base. It benefits the DeFi protocols because they're getting a bigger user base. And it benefits our industry because, once again, the applications people are able to build are just more advanced, right? And once again, that's our goal. Our fundamental goal is to provide a more advanced version of what our industry provides and to enable greater usability for the larger kind of global ecosystem of contracts, of finance, of insurance, of trade. And that is what will bring our industry into the future. That is what will make our industry about, hundreds of trillions of dollars, not $1.5 or $2 trillion. The fascinating direction that this goes in, right? The fascinating direction that this is really evolving in already now is the direction of the entire world's value flowing through a Chainlink abstraction layer. If you really think about it, and you think about what do web startups, Web 2.0 firms with thousands of employees, fintechs, and enterprises with tens of thousands of employees want to do in relation to blockchains, the answer is they just want to use them. They just want to use the blockchain, and they only want to use the blockchain really for the reasons that they can use a contract on the blockchain. So what does CCIP do? And what does the Chainlink abstraction layer do? It enables people to send commands to various blockchains and even utilize various smart contracts from a single interface. This is absolutely fantastic and amazing for the entire blockchain industry, for the simple reason that the value locked in Web 2.0, fintech land, enterprise land, can now flow into blockchain networks. If before they were stuck in integrations, they were stuck in choosing the right blockchain, they weren't able to integrate with certain blockchains because they were somewhere lower on their list, or God knows what reason. With a single interface, Web 2.0, fintechs and enterprises can integrate with all the world's blockchains, with Chainlink being, announced and integrating with over 100 chains. And not only that, but they can efficiently use all the applications on those chains. That's a next level improvement of integration. And I personally think from our conversations with various enterprises that this is exactly what they need. They need to take all of their existing systems, all of their existing workflows, their existing processes that they've trained 1,000, 10,000 employees on, or all their existing messaging protocols, all their existing routing systems for messages. They need to put it into an abstraction layer like Chainlink, and they need it to come out on the other side in a separate standard that allows them to reliably and in a provable manner interact not only with the blockchain, but also with the applications on a blockchain. So not only will they be able to send the command to a blockchain, but they'll be able to send the command to a specific contract. Personally, my personal point of view is that this extends even beyond enterprises. If we arrive at a world where CBDCs are on a blockchain, I personally think that there needs to be a global standard for how those CBDCs interoperate with other blockchain networks. And I think that's a far, far ways away. And I think CBDCs are very early. And I know there's a lot of, controversy about CBDCs. But my personal point of view is that if CBDCs are in a blockchain-based format, the ability for them to interoperate with blockchain networks and the ability for them to use DeFi applications will open the floodgates and will simply allow trillions upon trillions, hundreds of trillions of dollars to flow into blockchain networks, both public and private. So whether CBDCs are issued on blockchains or not, I don't know. But if they are issued on blockchains, then they will naturally need a solution to both interoperate with various enterprise systems, and they will need a solution to interoperate with various blockchain networks. And enabling that interoperation will be an extreme positive in the ability to allow trillions of dollars to flow into, the purchases of Bitcoin, the use of Ethereum DeFi, the use of gaming applications, the use of any number of other things. Fundamentally, if the world moves to a blockchain-based model, whether that's for supply chain data or global trade data or insurance-related contracts or CBDC, asset ownership or real estate ownership, what really matters is that the entire world moves to this cryptographically truth-based model. And our role is accelerating the interoperation, the access to data, the access to off-chain compute that's trust minimized for that to happen. And I personally think every single time that, an enterprise integrates into a blockchain, any CBDC that starts to interoperate with a blockchain like Ethereum or Bitcoin or any others is going to bring a huge flow of value into those environments. And I think that is gonna really, really change our industry personally. So my personal goal is to build these decentralized systems, get as many people as I can using CCIP, building cross-chain applications. And if CBDCs do go in a blockchain-based way, then enabling the value from those environments to flow and to interoperate with blockchain systems and DeFi applications will be a huge win for everybody. This is what the Chainlink kind of universe of decentralized services looks right now. There's the validated data universe, there's the off-chain computation universe, now there's the cross-chain universe, which hopefully I've been able to create clarity about why that's very meaningful. Generally speaking, I think that this universe is going to continue to grow with identity solutions, with various other capabilities that we see smart contract developers need. We will not be making a blockchain. We will not be making DeFi products. We will not be making the smart contract applications themselves. Our goal is to accelerate what DeFi developers, gaming developers, insurance developers can do with blockchains. And that is fundamentally tied to enabling a greater amount of capabilities in the world's blockchains by attaching all of these decentralized services around them, right? So our fundamental goal is to provide price and market data, proof of reserves, all the world's data, random number generation, keepers and various off-chain computation, expanded forms of computations like FSS, bridging and messaging capabilities through CCIP and various programmable token bridge implementations that other people in the community build or whoever builds. and to fundamentally augment what blockchains can build, which we see as the critical missing piece, and which we've already seen greatly accelerate what DeFi can do. Our fundamental belief and what we've seen in practice is that as each cross-chain service goes, as each service goes live, as each decentralized service gains steam and has more Oracle networks, going from tens of Oracle networks to hundreds, and going from tens of users to hundreds of users, those markets just speed up, right? There's just more useful stuff being built. The markets speed up, more people build things, more people need services. So our fundamental cycle is, hey, here's a great decentralized service, build something cool. Okay, you as developer build something cool. Wow, everybody's using that. Wow, there's more developers that want to build that type of application. How wonderful. Here's more services to do that. Oh wow, we helped invent an entire category of useful smart contracts. How exciting is that? By the way, we're reinventing what smart contracts do. We're reinventing their benefit to society. We're reinventing all these beneficial aspects of what our industry does. So that's the ancillary impact of that. I once again believe that we are at the very, very, very early stages, just based on basic arithmetic, right? This percentage in some of my previous past presentations was about 2.5. So the percentage in DeFi has grown. But as a percentage, it's still unbelievably low. It's still less than 5%. So if you think that 70 billion in DeFi is impressive, just another 5% and that doubles, right? I personally think that that's going to probably 10x to at least 50% is going to be in DeFi. And that means that DeFi is going to be approaching the value of $1 trillion in DeFi. That's my expectation. That's what we're building towards. That's why we need to build hyper secure systems, hyper reliable systems, for whether that's for data, keepers and automation, random number generation, cross-chain messaging, whatever it is, because that's the world that we expect. That's the world that we're driving towards. If you go outside of the blockchain world and you look at the value that's outside of it, I mean, we're not even at the early innings of this. Like, the game hasn't even started. Like, we're at like whatever the pregame thing is, where there's like some music playing or something. We're at before the beginning, right? Most people haven't even come and taken their seats yet. It is unbelievably early. If you look at the amount of value that is going to be transformed into a hybrid smart contract based form, I mean, we're so far below 1% that it's not even worth mentioning. And once again, this is where I think the world is going. This is where we want to take the world. We want to go to the place where the entire world operates based on cryptographic truth. And there's actually industries missing from this diagram. The gaming industry isn't on this diagram. The insurance industry isn't on this diagram. The trade finance industry for global trade isn't on this diagram. A bunch of other industries like the ad network industry aren't on this diagram. All of those are going to be powered by cryptographic truth. All of them. That is where this is going. That is what we're building for. That is what our industry should seek to achieve. That is what we want to achieve. We want to change the world from a just trust us paper promises mess, where people can change things up whenever the hell they want, to a cryptographically guaranteed system of math-based truth, where nobody can change anything unless it's been codified in an encrypted system. And that fundamental difference, in my opinion, will result in this transition. And this will be, in my opinion, one of the largest transitions in history of how the world works. And that's why I'm grateful to be working on it. That's why I work on this way. That's why I am into this. I am into this because there will be a point in history where people say there was before cryptographic truth and there was after. And before cryptographic truth, the world was a mess. And nothing was predictable and everything was failing every 10, 20 years. And there were booms and busts and economic crises every couple of decades. And after cryptographic truth, we entered a new age of productivity, emerging market growth, reliability, and simply just an ability for people to interact with each other in a predictable way. And that's why this will happen. That's why I believe in this. The value and the reason for this happening is fundamentally there. And I personally see it every single day in the users we work with. And after people experience cryptographic truth and use it as a user or use it as an institution or use it as a fintech, they don't want to go back. Doesn't make sense. They don't understand even the way that the other systems worked, because it's like it's just a joke to them once they experience what cryptographic truth actually offers. Once again, there's a virtuous cycle that we need to generate. We need to provide all the services. We need to provide all the decentralized systems. We need to provide all of the messaging protocols. We need to provide all the capabilities that are going to take the world into a state of cryptographic truth. That's what we do here. That's what we care about. That will likely result in an increase in the amount of services that are used and in the amount of services that we launch. So I don't even think this is the amount of services that Chainlink networks will run. I think this is a relatively small list. But I think this is the general dynamic, is that we have a virtuous cycle and a chicken and egg problem that we solve, where you couldn't build fraud-proof gaming in certain cases without fraud-proof randomness. And once you could, you had fraud-proof gaming. And then people came and played it. And then other people came and said, man, I want to make a fraud-proof game. Or you couldn't build DeFi without certain types of data. And now you have that data, and now you can build DeFi. And guess what? People really want DeFi because the paper promises of Robinhood or Wirecard or Enron or whoever are no longer their only choice. And so that is what we need to keep doing. We need to keep generating these services with our amazing community, our amazing partners, our amazing users, all of these people that we work with that we're just amazingly grateful to work with in enabling them and helping generate a world powered by cryptographic truth. So once again, I'm truly amazed at where we are in history. I think the ability to transition the world from a just trust us paper promises model to a cryptographic truth, mathematically guaranteed world is a once in a lifetime, probably once in a many lifetime opportunity. I'm personally deeply grateful every single day to be working on it. And I'm just amazingly impressed by a lot of the other people working on it with me. I'm also amazed that we finally have the technology thanks to Bitcoin and other subsequent advanced iterations like Ethereum and others to finally solve the problem of just trust us paper promises and replace those with cryptographic truths. So not only, is this a unique time in history, but we can actually solve this problem in the next few years. And I think that'll be looked on with real historical significance. That's my personal belief. I think it'll be looked on as something like the internet, because just like the internet, it'll completely reinvent how people work with each other, how the world works, how people interact with each other, whether they have or don't have certain things like bank accounts, insurance, any number of other things, for the reason that cryptographic truth was previously unavailable and it became available. Now, if this is interesting to you and you're interested in solving these types of problems and you can see that cryptographic truth is the future of how the world will work, I encourage you to contact us. People all over the world. We work with people in every country in the world. We want to work with you to make sure that your insight, your talent, your belief, your interest in generating cryptographic truth and making the world work in this way is something we can collaborate with you on. We have over 250 people right now at Chainlink Labs, some of the most amazing, most impressive people I've ever met in my life. And we're growing rapidly to help enable this together with many other teams in the Chainlink ecosystem. And I encourage you to join those teams or to join us and to really examine if changing the way the world works by making it run on cryptographic truth is something that you find interesting. And if that is an idea that you find interesting, and if you have a desire to work on that, whether you work in research or engineering or marketing or sales or operations, there are teams in our ecosystem that want to work with you that are growing rapidly due to the demand that the Chainlink system and networks are experiencing. And we want to hear from you and we want to work with you in a very collaborative, fast-moving, impactful environment. Because I have to tell you, on a daily basis, we are now making this happen. So if you're thinking about, do I want to work in the blockchain industry? Where do I want to work in the blockchain industry? I think Chainlink Labs and the Chainlink ecosystem is a great place to make an impact across many different use cases and many different chains, and generally just generate a lot of change in how our industry works and how useful it is to society in general. So if you're interested in this, please contact us. Beyond that, I really do want to say that I am deeply, deeply grateful to all of the people working on the various Chainlink network systems and services, on CCIP, on our efforts to make sure that users get an ability to integrate with Chainlink properly. All the people that inform people about Chainlink in a correct way and make sure that people know the benefits of it. And our amazing and kind of very supportive community, as well as the larger cryptos community. I think new appreciation for the benefits and the improvements we can bring to the crypto industry. I'm very grateful to be working with all of you. And I can't mention everybody by name in this talk because there's just too many people, and even all the categories or all the specific initiatives. But for whatever it's worth, I think it's important for